I appreciate you all being here, and to the three judges on our panel today. Thank you for your time and commitment to this country and your service to our country. We thank you for your good work. Professor Eastman points out this paper that was written by Seventh Circuit Chief Judge Richard Posner, who. And I'm going to read part of Mr. Eastman's testimony here. The quality of judicial output declines as the number of judges on an appellate court expands, was the premise of, or the conclusion of Richard Posner's, Chief Judge Posner's paper here. And I'm going to read again from Mr. Eastman's testimony. Thus, although the Fifth Circuit had nearly the same caseload as the Ninth Circuit experienced a rate of summary reversal more than 6 times higher than the next busiest circuit. Now, to be fair, that was looking at from 1985 to 1997. But he went on, as Ninth Circuit Judge O'Scanlan, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, noted in a 2013 article, quote, approximately 1 in 10 Ninth Circuit cases reviewed by the Supreme Court results in a summary reversal, end quote, and another half are reversed unanimously in a non-summary disposition by otherwise an ideological divided court. Moreover, according to Mr. Eastman's testimony, the combined reversal rate of the Fifth and the 11th Circuit is much lower than it was before the two circuits were split from the old Fifth. And so the question goes, was Chief Judge Posner wrong in his conclusion that the quality of judicial output declines as the number of judges on an appellate court expands? And if he is wrong, why is he wrong? I mean, he's citing some fairly strong evidence over a 12-year period.
One second. Well, I guess I'll start, if you don't mind. It's of course, when I hear those statistics, you recall that he's talking about a period before I even joined the court 20 years ago. So if you look at different periods of time on summary reversals, you actually get much different data. And I have looked at that because the subject seems to come up a fair amount because they want to use that as a statistic. But I think the more important question is does size affect quality of deliberation? And in the Ninth Circuit, I would say absolutely not. And I think that our deliberations now are even better than when I joined the court because of technology. We are exchanging views every single day in rapid form. And we have different judges who take different interests. Some are interested in intellectual property. Some are very concerned about the consistency of even our unpublished decisions. Some are concerned about bankruptcy law. And some are concerned about environmental law. And all of these judges bring different perspective to the court. And we have free and robust exchanges every day in terms of the kind of collegiality that Professor Eastman was talking about. So I think I don't mean to.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But my colleagues may have a different.
I mean, he looked at very statistical information and drew the conclusion that there is a direct relationship. I can tell Professor Fitzpatrick wants to jump in here. Go ahead.
Judge Posner is simply one of the most respected judges in the history of our court system. Perhaps the only federal judge that is smarter than Judge Posner is Judge Kaczynski. And so I think that he deserves great weight when he runs the numbers and comes to the views that he does. And again, it's consistent with everyone else that has looked at the data. Again, the study by Dr. Kevin Scott for the Federal Judicial Center, it all says the same thing, which is size matters.
And representing some, I think the number is more than 65 million people. I'm just not buying that it's faster and that support services. I mean, our population has grown over the years by tens of millions of people. And there does come a time when I think you need to split. And I got to tell you, there is a great deal of frustration with the Ninth Circuit. There are people that are absolutely fed up with some of these things. As a member of Congress, I got to tell you, the rulings that we've had coming out against President Trump to protect our borders and secure this nation, while none of you on this panel made that decision, it is infuriating to us to look to the Ninth Circuit to see people say, well, there's 70 people here that we got to protect and 80 people here. What about protecting the United States of America? And it's the Ninth Circuit that is causing these problems and taking away the duties that the Judiciary Committee, the Congress, has given to the President of the United States to protect our borders. There are people that are outraged about this, and those are specific cases with specific judges. But I got to tell you, according to some others that I hear on this panel saying, where's the outrage? There are a lot of us that are outraged. The President was duly given by Congress the authority to protect our borders. And for these injunctions to come in place and prevent the President from doing his job is absolutely, totally wrong. I do think, Mr. Chairman, this is the right way to do this and to look at it. I do think that certainly Chief Justice Posner and some of the panelists here are on the right track. I think being able to deal with things in block, too, should also be given some heavy weight, and that is clearly not happening in the Ninth Circuit. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, since I've been compared to Judge Posner, can I venture an answer? It won't take very long.
Your Honor, I might someday be in your court. How could I deny you?
Good answer. A model is, I have a great deal of respect for Judge Posner, but Dick and I disagree all the time on all sorts of things. And the model is only as good as the inputs you put into it. If you leave out important considerations, the model is going to give you the wrong answer. The period in question that Judge Posner looked at overlooked the makeup of the two courts. And the reality is that in late 1970s, the Ninth Circuit moved from 13 judges to 23 judges, and President Carter was able to appoint 11 or 12 judges to the Ninth Circuit, some of the most liberal judges the world has ever seen. Good friends of mine, with whom I disagree a great deal. And they had a tremendous influence in the jurisprudence of the court at that time. At the same time, the Supreme Court was very much going in the other direction. And so much of the disparity that Professor Fitzpatrick and Judge Posner refer to, you can only attribute to size if you think that judges are blank spheres. If you take into account who the judges were that populated the two courts, that explains it. It's not a question of size. Problem with Dick Posner's analysis, is he looked at the wrong thing. He looked at size, whereas really it was the composition of the panels that made the difference. Now, the fact that we're reversed by the Supreme Court doesn't mean we're wrong. It may be the Supreme Court was wrong, at least in the view of my colleagues. But I think that's what was going on there.
Well, I thank you, and I'm going to be forced to move on, if you don't mind. We now recognize the gentleman from California for his round of questioning, and I trust that we'll continue this lively back and forth of, size matters, it doesn't matter, ideology matters, it doesn't matter. But I would admonish all of us that we are trying to figure out whether to split the court for reasons that should not be ideological by definition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I clerked on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for the late Judge Thomas Tang. The Ninth Circuit had awesome judges then. It has awesome judges now. And what I want to ask, and first of all, thank you, Judge Kaczynski, for being here. My friend, Beverly Hills School Board member Lisa Korvatoff says very kind things about you. I want to ask you, as an appellate court, you have to take all cases. Isn't that correct? Unlike Supreme Court, you can't decide to pick and choose.
Of course.
Right. And it is no secret that states like California are just more progressive than, for example, a state like Kentucky. And isn't it possible that because you have to take all cases, you're just going to get a higher proportion of cases that push the envelope, that challenge the status quo, that are more progressive? And as a result, some of the statistics you're seeing are because of the cases that are brought before you. Is that correct?
That's certainly right. And of course, that would be exacerbated if California were isolated. One of the ideas of regional circuits is that you have no single state dominates a circuit. That you have, if you have a large state, you will have surrounding states that will provide other perspective, the rural perspective, the mountain perspective, the environmental perspective. And isolating California would only exacerbate the problem of which you speak.
Thank you, because I see many of the statistics that my colleagues on the other side bring up, and they're statistics without any meaning. I don't think the relevance is what percent does any particular circuit get reversed. I think the relevance is the quality of the opinions coming out of this circuit, and are they doing some groundbreaking opinions? So, for example, in 2014, when the Ninth Circuit went out and said, you know, bloggers have the same free speech protections as traditional press, that was a pretty awesome and amazing opinion. And that's the kind of things that we see out of the Ninth Circuit. And so I think the real statistic is, what are the quality of opinions coming out? Are the judges putting down their rationales? Are they explaining to the American people what they are doing? And for the record, I note that multiple judges have imposed a block on Donald Trump's bigoted travel ban. So just today, a Maryland judge in the Fourth Circuit blocked Donald Trump's bigoted travel ban. Do any of you believe we should break up the Fourth Circuit? That would be a no from the witnesses.
So melding it.
Right. The other thing I think we ought to look at is, in terms of how these circuits are configured, you do have efficiencies from the way Ninth Circuit is operated. I clerked on there. And it's interesting that my colleagues on the aisle don't want to have those efficiencies. But because of the way it's structured, I don't see any reason why we should change the Ninth Circuit. I think doing so would be purely for ideological reasons. But keep in mind, federal judges get paid to follow the Constitution regardless of where they sit, whether they sit in Maryland or in California or in Washington. And those federal judges have struck down or actually put a block on Donald Trump's travel ban. So it's not ideological. It's judges across the nation that have made this decision. So I think it's strange to say, let's break up the Ninth Circuit, as the president said last night, because a judge in Ninth Circuit said that his executive order was based on bigotry and unconstitutional. Because today, the Maryland judge said the same thing. And I'm waiting for the president to also say, let's break up the Fourth Circuit. But even if you broke up all these circuits, if you had 50 circuits, you'd still have the same number of federal appellate judges sitting there being paid to follow the Constitution. You'd still get the same decisions. It'd just be out of the 29th Circuit instead of the 9th Circuit. You wouldn't get any change in the law that's coming out. So I think this entire hearing is sort of bizarre and useless. And with that, I happily yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman.